There are no winners in tariff wars or trade wars. Bullying or hegemonism only leads to self-isolation.
Our next guest has just written a book titled Should the World Fear China? That's a collection of essays unpacking China's own view of its role in the world today. Let's get insights from Zhou, a retired senior colonel in the People's Liberation Army and now senior fellow in the Center for International Security and Strategy at Tsinghua University. Bo, good to have you with us. We heard Xi Jinping saying no winners in the trade war and the tariff war, but in the first round of negotiations, it does seem that China did win. This is a massive win for China.
Well, I do agree with you, Haslinda. Well, because Trump actually has backed down, so therefore, I believe China has really won this tariff war for the first round. Yeah, the point is China has made it quite clear that it will fight to the end. So therefore, China is the only country that has actually responded most aggressively to Trump's war over tariff. Actually, it's not the only area in the economic field. Militarily speaking, China is also the only country that would challenge America's freedom of navigation operations. Yeah, for example.
Well, you got to wonder how much leverage China can get from the first round of negotiations. How will it position itself in future rounds of negotiation?
Well, it's very simple. You see, Haslinda, if a big power tries to bully a small power, most probably it will succeed. But given that China's economy is so close to that of the United States, and in terms of PPP, China actually is the largest economy. So therefore, this kind of strategy of exerting maximum pressure on China would not work. This is just a common sense, right? If you just want to bully a small country, like you know what has happened, Vietnam, well, Vietnam could just give in go quickly. But on China, a country of this massive size with so many leverages, yeah, be it mineral or EV cars or so on, all these kind of things. So it's a common sense that Trump will not get where he wants to. So he talked about a reset the relationship, but I believe he actually reset himself.
Talk to us about the reset. What's your understanding of that reset in relationship between the two countries? How might China play that?
Well, I think reset actually starts from the American side. Yeah, it has a reset. It's a narcissism. It's a mentality. Yeah, it's a strategy. And China is responding. But I also believe, of course, with the door open for negotiation, the two sides definitely will continue to talk about it. And I'm very, very happy to know that they're going to have a different working group talks, so on and so forth. This reminds me of what happened during Obama administration, the so-called strategic and economic dialogues, where there are so many baskets. Of course, this won't be the case, right? But this is the beginning, maybe of a new era between China and the United States. The significance is not only economic field. You see, I think compared with Trump first, yeah, I mean his first first term, China actually this time is becoming more confident, and this will actually invite a lot of ramification and significance to our relationship in the future. Briefly speaking, China will be more brave to face any challenges posed by the United States, wherever they are, whenever they are.
Bo, I'm trying to understand if anything has changed fundamentally, especially in the way China thinks and, its role in this U.S.-China dynamic. I mean, we heard from Trump that, China has agreed to open up the country, its economy to U.S. businesses. Has anything changed at all?
Of course, a lot of things have changed fundamentally. First of all, Chinese leader would say that this is changes in a century. But what does that mean? The changes, of course, are not seen in last century. But you can argue that in every century there are so many changes. In this century, however, the biggest change is that China is getting stronger. And that is the most important part. And then the question is the United States declining or not? The U.S. would not be happy if you describe it as in decline, but if you say they're in relative decline, they have to admit. But to think that American economy is half of the whole world after the Second World War, now it's only a quarter. And who is the declinist? Actually, the largest declinist is Donald Trump himself. Because during his first term, before his first term, he described the United States in a carnage, and he's the man to lead American great again. So he actually is making use of this kind of decline mentality, and he became American president. So I think the strength actually has shifted. Globally speaking, the world is moving towards the Asia-Pacific or Indo-Pacific, whatever you call it, because the conclusion, even by the West, of the Munich Security Conference, is that not only the world is becoming less Western, but the West itself is becoming less Western. And the theme of this year's Munich Security Conference is multipolarization.
But Bo, I think there are lots of people out there as well who hold a different view that the U.S. is not in decline. And if you take a look at the markets, for instance, the concept of U.S. exceptionalism continues to be a theme. And they say that the U.S. economy remains pretty strong. Indicators suggest that as well. I just want to take a look at what you can expect in the next 90 days. We talk about how, there's been a suspension of those tariffs for 90 days. What do you see happening? Because when it comes to the issues that need to be ironed out, like semiconductors, like technology, these are really complicated issues.
Well, I hope that Donald Trump can honor his words. That means he will just call President Xi. Yeah, it is he who would call President Xi, and rather the other way around. And then, of course, the working groups will start to work. And I believe 90 days are long enough, so they can really work out a lot of deals. By and large, I believe this kind of deal eventually would like a balanced deal, because neither side can afford to lose face. So eventually we come to the starting point, more or less. But on the new ground.
As it stands now, can you see both the U.S. and China coexisting on an equal level?
I think so, because this has to be the case. You see, the best point probably is for the United States to give up this kind of notion that the U.S. is indispensable, is a city up on the hill, because this would actually create a kind of narcissism. But when this narcissism is found nowhere, they start to panic. They start worrying, and they start to look for enemies. But if you believe that, Western civilization, like Chinese civilization or Asian civilization, is but only one civilization, then you just would remind yourself, how could I just coexist with the people of other civilizations? And this is the basis of coexistence.
Talk to us about how you're assessing what's at stake for both sides, bearing in mind the compounding implications of this relationship.
Well, this is really a big question, yeah, because I believe what will make China-U.S. relationship different from the U.S.-Soviet relationship during Cold War is that we have to establish a kind of a new equilibrium. This equilibrium would not be, parity of nuclear weapons as found during Cold War. It must introduce some new areas such as AI, cyber, and outer space. In these areas, the difference between the two sides is not very big. And the good thing is China and the United States are not enemies. Yeah, we may not be friends, but we are described as by the United States as competitors. But competitors are not enemies. So actually, we have a better ground for coexistence. I think this is what we will have to manage. People say, well, whether we have entered into a new Cold War or not.
Right.
Well, we don't know. Why we don't know? Because we're looking into the future. We don't know in the future it will be a hot war or Cold War. Why did we have the so-called Cold War? During the Cold War, actually, every day people were preparing for hot war. And when finally they signed with Leaf, okay, what happened was about a Cold War. So that means when they look back, they concluded it's a Cold War. So we don't know what lies in front, whether it's hot war or Cold War.